I am going to use 1 minute to get started and pull up our PowerPoint as long as I can remember how to share on this Crowdcast platform. So thank you guys all for joining me on this Wednesday before a holiday weekend. I know you probably have a lot of things that you are hoping to do this weekend. And so hopefully this can be a fun, let's see, there we go. A fun time for us to talk through some recruiting best practices in the mountains. So I just wanted to take the time to review some great statistics and things like that we have learned from doing some surveys with Mountain Careers recently. And I just couldn't wait to do it any longer. So I put this deadline out there, and here we are today. So give me 1 second. It looks like my screen is not sharing the way I'd like it to. Let's see, stop sharing. In the meantime, if you'd just go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, maybe your name or where you're calling from, what organization you work for, or something you're hoping to learn, that would be awesome. Clearly, this is casual. I'm calling in from my basement / ski locker. Share something screen. Insider tips. There we go. Awesome. Much better. Let's pull up the chat. So those of you who are new to Crowdcast, it is really just a simple platform, mostly one-way communication where I can walk through these slides. But of course, we have our handy chat in the right-hand side. And I am just putting a little chat in there. Great to see some friends and colleagues on the call. So yeah, we are going to spend the next 30 minutes or so walking through some best practices, things that I learned through a recent survey, a little, and then some key tips that I've been using myself in my HR and recruiting practices, and hopefully can be some insightful things for you. So first and foremost, Mountain Careers is a platform for employers to post jobs and reach candidates. We started 7 years ago because we really saw a need to provide a better way for employers to reach candidates and also for candidates to find meaningful work in the mountains. So we specifically focus on mountain town regions, and we function as a job board, but also do our best to put out content, resources. In the past, have held events and things of that nature. Let's see, we can move forward. About 3 years ago, we started launching an annual survey, and I do that to collect information on, is our platform working, who's finding jobs, get feedback from employers. But most importantly, I use it as an opportunity as a professional working in the field to say, if I had questions, burning questions on my mind, and I wanted to survey my current organization or just get a pulse on the general job seeker mindset, here's my opportunity to do it. So this year, I love, this is how I wrote it. Over the last 7 years of running Mountain Careers, we have developed a hypothesis. Through our experience and conversations with hundreds of locals, our hypothesis was that housing wasn't the sole obstacle preventing people from working in our mountain towns. And so today, I'm going to walk you through that information and tell you one thing that I think we've discovered is an additional obstacle and things that we can work to overcome as local employers and peers here. So a little bit about me. I see that I know a handful of you are work at neighboring organizations, people who are on the call today. My name is Erin Schlichting. I'm the founder of Mountain Careers. I am located in the Vail region and have been here for my entire career after college, working in HR and recruiting for over 20 years in our mountain communities. We started Mountain Careers 7 years ago because I joined the town of Vale and felt like I had been in the community for 10 years and had no idea about government work, and felt like there was probably other people in my same position. And then having one single source where we provide information and jobs for employers would be a huge benefit and resource. And it continues to provide that. My current job, I work at Eagle Valley Transit Authority as the People and Culture Director, and I have worked at these other local organizations, Eagle County Government, Town of Vale, and Vale Resorts, focusing on human resource issues, culture, and of course, recruiting. So just a little bit about me, that I have been in your spot. I continually am in your spot where I'm actively trying to recruit as well. So these are things that I've learned along the way. And I should say this is casual. Feel free to pop a question in the chat, and I'll be happy to address those as we go. Okay, drum roll. So we're headed into the 2024 survey results. We had about 400 job seekers complete our survey this year. And here are some of the findings that I hope you can use as you dive into your recruitment plan for the year. So first and foremost, like I said, we had a hypothesis that it wasn't only about housing that was holding back our ability to hire and attract and retain talent in our mountain towns. So the hypothesis really was, are people aware of the opportunities in their community? Seems like a simple question. And so I started off by honestly posting it on Eagle County Classifieds, which is a large community Facebook platform, posting it in our LinkedIn page, which reaches over 12,000 job seekers or, professionals looking to live in the mountains, to really just ask that question, like, how aware are you of other opportunities? If you're not aware of them, it's not something that you can apply for. Therefore, employers are losing out. So as you can see here, 40% of the respondents to this question said that they are not familiar and have limited knowledge of career opportunities in my local community. 60% here said they're somewhat familiar, and then 0 said that they're very familiar. So all leading into that framework of, there's probably a lot of work we can do to help people become more aware of opportunities. And this is what I focused the survey on this year. We also ask questions like, what are your key motivators when you're looking for a job? Continually, year over year, we ask this question. Here you can see, I'll give you some of the highlights. 22% said that they're looking for more work-life balance and flexibility. That's something as an HR professional, I'm sure you continue to read in your Harvard Business Reviews and see posts, but it still really is something that job seekers or happy professionals who would leave for another opportunity say is one of their highest priorities. Next here, I loved to see this, 18% that they were interested in a change in industry, right? So these are, to me, 18% of these job seekers could be interested in working for your organization if it's a different industry. Next, there's people, because this one was to the entire mountain career. So, 17% are looking to relocate to the mountains. 14% are looking for a better workplace culture. I think we can all appreciate that ourselves, the value that really provides for employees. And then I knew higher pay. 19%. So I was like, let's not forget, with the cost of living and all of those things, that people are still focused on pay. And that's still a key element of making mountain living sustainable, really, and doable is the pay. So these are just things, as we talk through the steps, I want you to keep in mind, things that are important to call out in your job postings, because you want to attract people. You want to call their attention to these things if they're things you're able to offer. Next, I asked them, are you open to a change? If you had more information about how to easily transition into a new career, would you consider a career change like teaching, nursing, skills trade, or others? I called out some of those main industries because I know I work with the school district on one of their accountability boards and know that they have a hard time recruiting. We know that hospitals and nurses. So I just wanted to say, would people get into these more specialty fields if they had information on how to do it? So as you can see, 33% said yes. 41% said maybe, and only 24% said no. So to me as a recruiter, what that would say to me is 75% of our workforce would consider a career change if they knew how to do it or how to gain the certificates or had more information about what it's like to work in the industry I'm hiring for. So those are all really good statistics. It actually points to, I think traditionally they say something like, 75% of people would leave their career for a better opportunity. That doesn't mean they're actively, seeking a new opportunity. Those are what you call passive candidates. And so this sort of aligns with that, right? It's saying, I'm probably happy at what I'm doing, but gosh, if I had more information or my interest was piqued, I could easily think about making a career change. All these are like what we'll call the opportunity zones, people we're going to try to reach. So I dove a little deeper and said, if you answered yes or maybe, which fields might interest you most? These were guided by a lot of the fields we have here. So teachers, the top one was outdoor industry. No surprise, that's usually one of those, really fun, intriguing industries. But still, if you boil it down, healthcare came in at the second highest, 64% said they'd be interested, or sorry, 40%. Emergency services, skilled trades, even seeing any of these percentages and the amount of people saying, yes, I would do this if I had more information is really good news to us as people running organizations or those attempting to hire. So it's also important for me to keep a pulse on professionals living in our mountain towns, and how happy they are in their current jobs. And so this is really great news. In general, let's see if we're going to add those two categories to the right. It's like, what is that? 80% are at midpoint or above. So people are feeling generally happy in their careers. I always prefer to, recruit people who are happy where they're at, and have them come over and sort of bring that positivity towards the workplace. And so in general, as mountain communities, as employers, we are doing a good job keeping our employees happy. But now it's like, how do we get them to come work for us, right? What can you do to attract them? So feel free to let me know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going through our information here. So how can you use this data that we just shared to inform your hiring practices? I'm going to walk through three main things that I always have on top of mind and share with employers if they're struggling. The first is job postings and budget. The second is, how are you going to build awareness and communication strategies around your jobs or around your place of work? And then the third one is to really focus on designing an effective interview process. I like to focus on all three of these. I'm not giving you great details, but I'm going to just walk through, pretend I'm sitting, having coffee with you guys, telling you my insights on here. So first and foremost, job postings and budget. I actually see this a lot where employers say, I absolutely can't hire for this position. And I start to ask them questions like, well, where is your job posting posted? How much money have you allocated to this? And it really surprises me that they haven't always thought about that, so they might have simple things like a flyer on their door or, a job posting on their website, or have figured out, to put it in the newspaper, but haven't really approached it with a strategic mind. And so knowing that we know that we've just recently learned that people don't know what they don't know. They don't know what opportunities are out there unless they're placed in front of them. Allocating money to hiring is very important. There's a great book out there called, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to, it's Google Works. I'll have to put it in the chat in a minute, but it basically walks through how Google created their hiring strategies and their growth strategies. And it was all based upon investing in recruiting up front. The idea being that if you don't invest a lot and you're only going to reach this amount of the people, that maybe you're not getting the best people into your funnel. Sorry, I'm trying to show you a funnel. But if you're able to spend more money up front, widen your pool of applicants that you're reaching, you're going to have more success down the road. We all know that hiring top talent or the best people for your organization is going to save time and effort down the road, as well as hopefully, bring in efficiencies or other great things to your organization. So, if you are a larger organization who's constantly posting jobs, you might be able to spend less per job. So, you might be able to say per job, I'm going to spend $200 because you have lots of different ads out there across the market, reminding locals or job seekers that you exist as an employer and here are the things you offer. So that would be like one rule of thumb when looking at budget, $100 to $200. But if you are a small employer who doesn't hire often, the chances that people know you as an employer or would think to go to your website are much smaller. So you might, in that case, have to spend $1,500 to really get the word out. But so it's not like, oh, I don't hire often, I'm just going to spend $100 or $200 and get on one or two platforms. No, at that point, it's like your work to spread the word about who you are as an employer and really try to reach the best candidate is going to be a little bit more expensive because you're not spending recruiting dollars all year round. And convincing your leadership team of the importance of spending dollars on recruiting and on advertising is your first step. So I always recommend that people are using at least 2 or 3 platforms. So, if people are coming to Mountain Careers, which of course we love and love sharing your jobs, and our goal is that we're able to get it reaching your locals farther and different than a newspaper might be able to, or than your social media channels would be, and that, our robust emails are helping. I often recommend don't just post on Mountain Careers. If you're posting on Mountain Careers, let's think of at least 1 or 2 other places that you can be posting, because the idea is that we are trying to reach as many people as possible. Other websites, I've loved is, sometimes your local newspaper is an okay approach. Craigslist seems to be, Indeed is definitely driving the most traffic these days. I find that a lot of it is not the best piece, or you're reaching people who don't know about the mountains. But hey, at this point, you're trying to cast a broad range of advertisements out there to attract the best person. Next is the idea of awareness and communication. So this can really be bucketed, and I probably should have titled the slides like employment branding. So the idea behind driving awareness and communication is separate from your general job postings. This is how you define yourself as a workplace and how you get people to know about yourself as a workplace. There can be lots of different strategies here, from having your team attend seminars or speaking on panels, sponsoring local events can be another one, or just building out a robust careers site that talks about who you are as an employer, all the way to having like a PR strategy. Like, how do I tell the story of who we are and what we do in our work in a purposeful way to continue to attract people to come check out our job board online? Because ultimately the desire or the goal of all of your recruitment efforts is that you're sending people back to your landing page to see what jobs you have available. You've hit the gold standard where people are just going to check out your website and actively coming to see if you're hiring without having to click through on a job posting. So a few ways you do that is really like, if you have a marketing person, work with them and talk to them and get to know them and see what strategies they would recommend. The more place that your logo or that you're embedded in the community, the more people who will consider working at your workplace and really understand the purpose that you guys drive, and might make them consider working for you. But here's my cautionary tale here. You never want to false advertise, right? So if you saw in slides 1 and 2, gosh, people are really looking for a flexible workplace and a good work culture. That does not mean that we just want to go on our websites and say, hey, come join us. We have a very flexible workplace and, everybody gets along. It's great culture. You really want to make sure you're speaking the truth there around your communications and how you're branding yourself. So my first recommendation is always to work internally first before promoting externally. So what that means is make sure that you have a real pulse on what your current culture is. Those employees are going to be your best advocates for spreading the awareness around what it's like to work in your organization. And they will actually work as recruiters for you as well. So first things first here, instead of thinking about how can I put employees on these panels, or, should we put out an article about, our great place to work, or try to apply for one of those awards. First things first is really clean up your house internally. I have done that in organizations. Sometimes people are nervous about launching a survey and what are we going to do about the results? If you're in that place, I literally just walk into employee break rooms, schedule quick meetings, and ask people a few simple questions. What do you like about working here? What brought you here? Why do you work here? Why do you stay here? Just doing a few even like Google Forms or short pulse surveys, send out emails to some employees to start to gather that information in writing or verbally. And that's how you can start to frame like that culture that you will then be communicating. So once I understand what the current culture is and make sure that it's in a place where I feel great about advertising it, promoting it, then the next step is to make sure all your employees know that. So start off by having, internal newsletters, or sharing internal jobs with them, or reminding them of their great benefits. And once you feel like employees have a good sense of their culture, their purpose in the organization, and as well as their benefits, then it's a great time to say, great, how can we communicate in this externally to really get employees to job seekers to come work here. And the interview process. So I keep using my hands for you guys. So I guess I think of it as this big funnel that we're creating. And at this point, seeing those of you on the call, and I know a few of you, like, you work for great organizations that provide really great benefits and have strong cultures. What's going to be important at this point is that my funnel is how I'm, driving awareness, doing advertisement, building a culture that's hopefully bringing lots of applicants into my funnel here. It's now our responsibility as either a leadership team or an HR team to build a nice filter on that, right? How are we going to filter through only the best candidates who are going to add value to our culture? I don't like to say who are going to fit into our culture. I like to say who's going to add value to our culture here. And be a good fit for it. So I know that in many times when people are short staffed, or you're maybe posting a lot of jobs, it's easy to not be thoughtful about the interview process, and that can come back to hurt us. We all know what happens when you don't get a strong candidate or hire somebody who actually causes more damage to the organization than add value. So spending time really at the job posting phase, or right after you get the job posting done, to decide how you and documenting your interview process is what I find to be very important, so that it's not rushed the day that it starts, right? Because all of a sudden it's like you're refreshing, you're trying to see if you got any applicants. Yes, you're finally starting to get some good applicants. Then you move on to the next task, and all of a sudden it's time to interview these people, and you're quickly rushing to come up with an interview question. So my newest structure that I've been using internally has been, I first have the hiring manager, or I take the job description myself and work with the hiring manager to say, what are your 5 key skills that are non-negotiable in hiring somebody here? What are the 5 most important things? What I'm going to do with those 5 things is I'm going to put them at the top of my interview questions. I'm going to put it at the top of any documentation I'm doing to continually remind ourselves that these are the things we're looking for in a candidate. They can be hard skills, like I need them to, be able to get a CDL, or they can be softer skills, like I need them to be able to learn information, retain it, and, be adaptable in the workplace. So that is up to you to really define what those are. I then take those 5 key things. I find over 5, you're starting to look for unicorns and it gets very difficult. We're just going to use 5. And these are going to be your rating things. So it doesn't mean that your candidate has to have all of them. But it does mean that this is how you're going to make sure that you, remove your own personal biases, that you don't fall into, traditional traps where, oh, we went to the same college, or, we both worked at Vail Resorts together. They must be a great candidate. So it really keeps you and your hiring team focused on these 5 things. You can go as far as having a little rating scale with them, to say, or you could just say sort of pass fail. Like, did they have this? Yes, no, maybe. So that you're having some sort of consistency in how you're rating candidates. If you find somebody doesn't have one of those top 5 things, that might be okay. Or it might be an area you want to continue to assess with that candidate. I then take those 5 key items and develop interview questions for them. Of course, AI is a brilliant tool these days to come up with some amazing questions that you hadn't maybe thought of. And so you can do something as easy as take your 5 key things, put it into your AI chat, and ask it to, give you interview questions to assess these 5 key skills in X industry, and see what it does for that. I then add a few questions that really help me assess if they are going to be a strong cultural add to our workplace, and begin. But I do find if you can create those interview questions in advance, it helps a lot of things. I've also been sending interview questions to candidates in advance. So, like I just said, we finish, I have them all locked in. Maybe I, erase 2 or 3 to have them, do those things later. But I find by sending interview questions in advance, it allows candidates to come better prepared, and I get better answers and better results from that. So that is for you to decide, but it has been working really well. One thing I know in a modern workplace is that we need somebody who's adaptable and can learn. The workplace is changing very quickly. So to me, if I'm giving you the answers in advance and you are able to research a few things you might not have known, and come back and present that information to me in a meaningful way, well, then you've just shown me that you're resourceful, you can, think critically, and that shows me you're very interested in the job. I also sometimes ask them to email me something in advance, continuing to ensure that, people have whatever, maybe the technology skills or a written skill that's up to our level. Not always looking for something fancy, but it does help me understand how people think or how they relate to their coworkers. So those 3 tactics have been really meaningful in our recruitment processes so far. So I'm going to take a deep breath and pause for a second. Those were the 3 things that I wanted to share with you guys today. Really, as we build out Mountain Careers, I continue to learn a lot, and then I take those things that I'm learning, because I have behind the scenes sort of insights to who's hiring, what type of jobs they're posting, what are people clicking on, and use those to form my recruitment practices. And so they're not secretive. I want you guys to use them as well, and hopefully continue to grow your organizations and attract the best talent. I truly believe here in our mountain towns that, because we are mostly formed with strong small organizations, that for people to grow and stay in our towns, they will have to move organization to organization, to have that development. And the stronger our organizations or HR networks are, the better. I never want to see somebody staying at an organization if there's a growth opportunity. So with that, I will pause and see if there's any questions. I will definitely send this PowerPoint and the video out. If you found it interesting, you can share it with a peer or dive into the survey information that I have included. Anything else I didn't cover that you'd like me to address? Okay, I'm good at sitting in silence. Okay, well, um, thanks. Geraldine, or Dr. Davis, that's a great question. How does fostering inclusion correlate to hiring strategies? So I would say my key approach right now, well, two things. One, it's to use inclusive hiring practices. One of which, in my opinion, is to send interview questions in advance. Some people perform really great on the spot, others do not. And so providing interview questions in advance helps level that playing field, right? Many jobs, we're not trying to figure out who can think the fastest on their feet in 30 seconds. We're trying to figure out, we want the best information for those questions. So that's one thing. As well, other things would be like to have a diverse panel of interviewees on my panel. So to make sure that I'm bringing in different mindsets and skill sets and backgrounds to help me evaluate candidates. But most importantly is I definitely ask questions around to candidates to understand their inclusive practices at work. And my goal is to hire people who already have inclusive practices. I feel like inclusion and being thoughtful of gathering diverse opinions in the workplace is not a new strategy. And so, for me, a lot of times I'd like to hire people who have already considered that, even if it's not something your organization has trained on. The internet exists and there's lots of professional resources out there. And so I think people should be at least adapt to the idea that their coworkers might think different than them, might have different things going on, might have different backgrounds, and be aware enough to say, hey, I should try to seek, out different opinions and thoughts on this project. So that would be my biggest one, is that, I directly ask candidates about their inclusionary practices in the workplace. Okay, well, you guys are all such HR troopers and leaders in your organization for showing up on a Wednesday after work. I really appreciate it. I am available if you guys have questions, and I will send a follow-up email over the weekend. And I wish you guys the happiest long weekend, and stay in touch if you have any recruitment questions. I love chatting about this stuff. Bye. How do I end